Sophia walked through the park, her mind a whirl of thoughts and emotions. The past few months had been tough on her, and she needed some time to herself. Her marriage to Mark, once full of passion and understanding, now felt like a monotonous routine. Mark had become increasingly preoccupied with his high-powered job, leaving little time or energy for their relationship. As Sophia strolled along the winding paths, she thought about the arguments, the silent dinners, and the cold nights spent alone. She felt like she was losing herself in the process, becoming a shadow of the woman she once was. Her thoughts were interrupted when she spotted a familiar face sitting on a bench, reading a book. It was David, her high school crush. "Sophia, is that you?" David called out, his face lighting up with a smile. "David, oh my gosh, it's been ages," Sophia replied, feeling a rush of excitement and nostalgia. She walked over to him, and they embraced warmly. They spent the next hour catching up, reminiscing about their school days and sharing stories about their lives. Sophia felt a spark that had been missing for so long. David was charming, attentive, and genuinely interested in what she had to say. They exchanged contact information, promising to stay in touch. As Sophia walked back home, she felt a sense of lightness she hadn't experienced in a long time. The encounter with David had brought back memories of a time when life was simpler and happier. She couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to have that feeling again. The days following her encounter with David were filled with excitement and anticipation. They started texting each other, their conversations becoming increasingly personal and intimate. Sophia found herself looking forward to their interactions, feeling a connection that she had longed for in her marriage. One evening, after a particularly heated argument with Mark, Sophia felt overwhelmed and needed someone to talk to. She grabbed her phone and texted David, asking if he was free to meet. David replied almost immediately, suggesting they meet at a bar nearby. Sophia arrived at the bar, her heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and excitement. She spotted David at a corner table, already nursing a drink. He smiled as she approached, standing up to hug her. "Rough night?" David asked, his voice filled with concern. "You have no idea," Sophia sighed, taking a seat across from him. "Mark and I had another fight. I just couldn't stay at home." David nodded sympathetically. "I'm sorry to hear that. But hey, you're here now. Let's try to take your mind off things." They ordered drinks and talked for hours, the conversation flowing effortlessly. David's presence was comforting, and Sophia felt a sense of relief she hadn't felt in a long time. As the night wore on and the drinks kept coming, their inhibitions began to fade. At some point, David leaned in closer, his eyes locked onto hers. "Sophia, I've missed you. I've missed this," he said softly, his voice tinged with emotion. Sophia felt a rush of emotions, her heart racing. "I've missed you too, David." Before she knew it, they were kissing, the world around them fading away. The kiss was passionate and filled with a longing that had been suppressed for years. They decided to leave the bar and checked into a nearby hotel, their desire overwhelming any sense of reason. In the dimly lit hotel room, they gave in to their passions, losing themselves in each other. It was a night of intense emotions and physical connection, a stark contrast to the cold distance Sophia felt with Mark. Sophia woke up the next morning, sunlight streaming through the hotel room window. She blinked, disoriented, and then reality hit her like a ton of bricks. She turned to see David still asleep beside her, his face peaceful and content. The events of the previous night flooded back, and she felt a wave of guilt and panic. Quietly, she slipped out of bed and gathered her clothes. She dressed quickly, trying to make as little noise as possible. Her mind raced with thoughts of what she had done and the potential consequences. She couldn't believe she had crossed such a line. David stirred and opened his eyes, looking at her with a mix of confusion and regret. "Sophia, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen," he said, his voice heavy with remorse. Sophia nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "I know, David. I didn't either. But we can't undo it now." They exchanged few words before Sophia left the hotel, feeling the weight of her actions pressing down on her. She walked quickly, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. She knew she had to face Mark and deal with the fallout, but she had no idea how. As she exited the hotel, she was seen by a familiar face at the reception desk. Laura, Mark's sister, was working a part-time job at the hotel. She looked at Sophia with shock and suspicion, immediately recognizing her. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" Laura asked, her voice laced with curiosity. Sophia froze, her heart pounding. "Oh, Laura, I was just meeting a friend," she stammered, trying to maintain her composure. Laura raised an eyebrow, but didn't press further. "All right, take care," she said, watching Sophia leave with a lingering sense of doubt. Sophia hurried home, her mind racing with fear and guilt. She knew that Laura's presence at the hotel could complicate things further. She had to figure out a way to handle the situation before it spiraled out of control. Laura couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about Sophia's explanation. Later that day, she called Mark, deciding to share what she had seen. "Mark, I need to talk to you. It's about Sophia," Laura began, her voice hesitant. "What is it, Laura?" Mark asked, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "I saw her at the hotel today. She was leaving with a man. It didn't look like a business meeting," Laura revealed, her words careful but clear. Mark felt a surge of anger and disbelief. He had suspected something was wrong, but hearing it from Laura confirmed his worst fears. "Thanks for telling me, Laura. I'll take care of it," he said, his voice tight with suppressed rage. That evening, Mark confronted Sophia. He had spent the entire day simmering with anger, and he was ready to explode. When Sophia walked in, he was waiting for her in the living room. "Sophia, we need to talk," Mark said, his voice cold and controlled. Sophia felt a pang of fear. "What is it, Mark?" Mark showed her the picture Laura had sent him. "Explain this." Sophia's face turned pale. She stammered, trying to find the words, but Mark cut her off. "I don't want to hear your excuses. You've betrayed me, Sophia. How long has this been going on?" Tears welled up in Sophia's eyes. "It was just one night, Mark. I was feeling lonely and neglected. It was a mistake, I swear." "A mistake? Do you even realize what you've done? How could you do this to me, to us?" Mark's voice was filled with hurt and anger. "I'm sorry, Mark. I never meant to hurt you," Sophia pleaded, her tears flowing freely. Mark shook his head, his expression hardening. "Sorry isn't good enough, Sophia. I trusted you, and you threw it all away." Mark was seething with rage. He felt a deep sense of betrayal and humiliation. He decided he needed to confront David as well. He tracked down David's address and drove over, his mind consumed with thoughts of revenge. When David opened the door, he was met with Mark's furious gaze. "We need to talk," Mark said, pushing his way inside. "Mark, David began, but Mark cut him off. "Save it. I know everything. How could you do this to me? To Sophia?" Mark's voice was shaking with anger. David looked remorseful. "Mark, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. It was a mistake. A mistake? You think that makes it better? You betrayed your friend for what? A night of pleasure? Mark spat. His fists clenched. I know it was wrong. I'm truly sorry, David said, his voice sincere. Mark took a deep breath, trying to control his anger. This isn't over. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did. You'll pay for this, both of you. With that, Mark stormed out, leaving David to contemplate the destruction he had caused. Mark decided to inform Sophia's family about her infidelity. He knew it would devastate them, but he wanted Sophia to feel the full weight of her actions. He visited her parents' house and revealed the affair, showing them the evidence he had gathered. Sophia's mother, Sarah, was shocked and heartbroken. How could she do this? We raised her better than this, she said, her voice trembling. Mark felt a twinge of guilt, but pressed on. She needs to face the consequences of her actions. I thought you should know the truth. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you for telling us, Mark. We'll handle this. As Sarah and Mark spent more time together, they developed a close bond. They found solace in each other's company, sharing their pain and comforting one another. Over time, this bond deepened, and in a moment of weakness, they crossed a line. One evening, as they were sitting together, Sarah looked at Mark, her eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and longing. I don't know what I'd do without you, Mark. You've been my rock through all of this, she said softly. Mark reached out and took her hand. You've been there for me too, Sarah. I don't know how I'd have coped without your support. The air between them was charged with unspoken emotions. Before they knew it, they were kissing, their shared pain and loneliness fueling their desire. They ended up spending the night together, crossing a line that would change everything. The revelation of Mark and Sarah's affair came to light, causing a major rift in the family. Sophia was devastated when she found out, feeling a deep sense of betrayal and humiliation. She confronted her mother, her voice filled with hurt and anger. How could you do this to me, Mom? How could you betray me like this? Sophia demanded, tears streaming down her face. Sarah looked at her daughter, her eyes filled with regret. I'm so sorry, Sophia. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. It just happened? That's your excuse? You were supposed to be my mother, my support, and you went behind my back with my husband. Sophia's voice broke with emotion. Meanwhile, David was facing his own crisis. News of his affair with Sophia had spread, and he was now embroiled in a scandal at work. He was suspended pending an investigation, his career hanging by a thread. Struggling with the consequences of their actions, both Mark and Sarah tried to make amends. Mark sought forgiveness from his children, trying to explain his actions and expressing deep remorse. Sarah attempted to repair her relationship with Sophia, but the damage was too deep. Mark sat down with his children, his heart heavy with guilt. I know I've made terrible mistakes, and I'm so sorry for the pain I've caused you. I hope you can find it in your hearts to forgive me. His children listened, their expressions a mix of anger and sadness. It's going to take time, Dad. What you did hurt us deeply, his eldest daughter said. Sarah, on the other hand, found it difficult to reach Sophia. Every attempt at reconciliation was met with resistance. Sophia couldn't look at her mother without feeling a wave of anger and betrayal. Please, Sophia, let's talk. I want to make things right, Sarah pleaded. I can't, Mom. Not now. Maybe not ever, Sophia replied, her voice cold and distant. Mark decided to leave and start anew, feeling that his presence only brought pain to those he cared about. He packed his belongings and moved to a new city, hoping to find some semblance of peace and redemption. Sophia, now aware of the full extent of the betrayal, tried to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. She started therapy to deal with her emotions and focused on her career and children. Sarah, filled with regret, contemplated drastic measures, but was eventually convinced to seek help. She started attending counseling sessions, hoping to find a way to cope with her guilt and rebuild her relationship with Sophia. A year later, both Mark and Sophia had made strides in their personal growth. Mark had found peace in a new city, working on rebuilding his life and finding new purpose. He had started dating again, cautiously opening his heart to new possibilities. Sophia had started a new job and was working on her relationship with her children. She had built a support network of friends and family, finding strength in their love and understanding. Her therapy sessions had helped her come to terms with the past and look forward to the future. If you like our stories, please subscribe to our channel so that I can push better stories.